pleasure to be with you all. Thank you so much for the invitation. And I've been, honestly, over the past like 2.5 or 1.5 days, really grateful to have been brought into the 50CAN community. Now, gratitude aside, I've found when giving presentations that it's actually best to start off by insulting the audience in some way. I want to alienate you all intentionally, create a little bit of a distance here. Because I've been traveling the country for the past 4 or 5 years working with school districts on how to modernize and adapt their curriculum to an emerging technology tidal wave, right? And in that is a lot of abstract concepts. There's a lot of complex new vocabulary words. It's just a lot of like to get your head around: AI, data science, quantum computing, blockchain. And I found that if people are generally happy and they're like paying attention and they're kind of following what you're saying, they're like kind of listening. But if I insult someone, if I get someone angry, then they're really on the edge of their seats, right? Because they want to punch back, try to figure out how to get the counter argument back in. And so I'm going to start off with an insult. Just bear with me. How many of you have learned something new about AI this past year? Right? You've seen it in the news, you read it? Something. Okay, great. Most of the room. Okay, so I'm here to tell you that every single person in this room is thinking about AI wrong, incorrectly. You got it wrong. And in fact, I'm going to go a step further. Every single person in this room is an idiot. You are an AI idiot. Now, don't get too worried. Turns out the root, the etymology of the word idiot comes from the Greek. It was originally pronounced idiotes. And it referred to common people, or the common man, as differentiating from a statesperson, right, in like old Greek society. And then a couple decades later, or a couple centuries later, the Romans pick it up, and they start using the word idiot to refer to someone who's simply uneducated, as differentiating from someone who goes up in the meritocracy, who worked in the Senate, et cetera. So it'd be very rude if I called you all dumb or unintelligent or something worse like that, right? So that's not what I'm doing. I'm just simply saying that you don't have familiarity in this particular subject. And there's a reason for it. None of us do, right? AI is brand new if you're an adult. It just came out in the past couple of years. We're all still getting to know the mechanisms and how it's going to affect the world. And if you're a student, it's not in the curriculum, right? There's no place yet, universally, where we're teaching the foundations. And so it makes sense that all of us are, in the old sense of the word, AI idiots. I want to go a little bit deeper into the subject today, and my goal is to do a deep dive into this emerging technology, and I also want to make an argument for where in the curriculum I think there's some space and some room to be teaching some really critical foundations for the technology, and it's not in a place that you might be thinking. The first piece of this, AI is older than you, or at least most likely. You all have likely heard this in the headlines, right? That AI isn't brand new. ChatGPT is just sort of enhancing existing technology. What you might not know is that the very, very first AI model was developed in 1950. AI is older than smartphones. It's older than the internet. It's older than personal computers, and yeah, it's probably older than most of you. I'm going to give you a very brief timeline of computing technology generally, just to orient you here, right? So the first digital computers were built in the 1940s. A lot of those were developed as code-breaking devices, and so if you remember World War II, if you've seen The Imitation Game, right, mathematicians were playing with code devices to try to break communication norms from the Nazis. We get the first microprocessor in 1970. The early days of the internet come out in the 90s, and then, of course, the first iPhone in the late 2000s. AI follows this same timeline almost precisely. In 1950, Claude Shannon, he's a French dude, creates the first instance of machine learning. It's a robotic maze-solving mouse at Bell Labs, the AT&T company. And it's named Theseus. And its goal was to automatically remember a maze's dead ends and pathways through using a series of telephone relays. In 1958, right, as early as 1958, we have the first image recognition machine learning algorithm created it was called Perceptron Mark I, and it was used in architectural contexts. And its goal was to distinguish something really simple, just comparing squares and circles. So we already had that device and that tool as early as 1958. And then over the preceding decades, we have other machine learning and neural network algorithms that developed. A lot of these things were developed like through the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And the algorithms that we use today are somewhat different from the originals, but they aren't that like amazingly different. They haven't moved that far in the spectrum. We've had neural networks, which was one of the underpinning technologies of this since about the 70s. So my general question for you all, and where I want to just push a little bit deeper, is why did AI suddenly get so good in the past couple of years? Right, we've had the technology, we've had the algorithms. Suddenly, like in the 2010, 2015, and then obviously today, they get way, way better. And because I'm told people like pictures during presentations, this is a picture of the very, very first AI tool. This is the mouse named Theseus. It's now kept at the MIT Museum. And it was, again, programmed to automatically and remember its pathways as it worked through a new and novel maze. OK, so let's get him out of here. So AI became really, really powerful suddenly in the 2010s. As early as 2014, AI tools were able to generate images that had some human likeness. And then year over year, it got better. Right? So we had programs to develop, and none of these are real people. These are all computer-generated images going back 2014, 2015, and then you see each year it improves a little bit, right? By 2021, 2022, at least for researchers, they already have access to tools that can generate images of cats stacked on dogs with turtles and whatever other combination that kids are entering into ChatGPT to get their favorite pet generated. And so, my question is, why did all this get so much better? And it has something to do with something called the zettabyte era. Have any of you heard of the zettabyte era before? Probably not. We passed it officially in 2012. That was when we officially entered the zettabyte era. And this was really something only like mega nerds in like Silicon Valley or your local basement were paying attention to. It received all about 3 articles at the time in the Silicon Republic, TV Tech, and The Guardian. And what a zettabyte refers to, or we crossed this threshold of humanity having generated an entire zettabyte's worth of data. Digital data that was stored, organized, and retrievable somewhere, whether it's on servers, or it's in your smartphone, or it's on the cloud. Since then, the amount of data has exploded. Right? We've gone from 1 zettabyte in 2010, more on that in a minute, all the way up to 175 zettabytes in 2025. Now, to explain this concept, you all are probably wondering, okay, like, well, what the heck is a zettabyte, right? I could tell you that a zettabyte is equivalent to 1,000 exabytes, which is equivalent to 1 million petabytes, which is equivalent to 1 billion gigabytes, which is equivalent to R2-D2, right? Like, it isn't very useful because all this just sounds kind of like nonsense, right? So I want to try something a little bit more familiar. And this is where the prop comes into play. Can I actually ask the 50CAN team to bring me my prop? Thank you very kindly. Do you all know what this is? Do you remember this? A phone book. You have no idea how hard it was to find this thing. I texted friends. I texted my whole family group chat. Didn't find it. Then I asked my team to ask their folks. They all texted their family group chats, right? Sam ended up finding it. Sam, raise your hand, our policy director at DS4E. Sam found a guy on eBay and made a deal in the back of a church parking lot to get this thing. So thank you for Employee of the Month, Sam. OK, so think about all the addresses and phone numbers and text data that's contained in a phone book, right? That's equivalent to about a megabyte. And for reference, that's about the size of a desktop picture. But just hold that thought, because I'm going to try to make this a little bit more tactile and so you can wrap your head around it. OK. So I also have this flash drive. This is an 8 gigabyte flash drive. It's pretty small. This is a little bit of an older one. This holds the equivalent of 8,000 phone books, just to give you a sense of how much better we've gotten It's storing data over time. I'm going to do this in a couple different ways to just help get your head around it. So first we're going to go like old school science classroom experiment in physics class, and we're going to do a gravity experiment, right? So just to get you all familiar with this. So I'm going to drop this on the stage so you all can hear what 1 megabyte sounds like. Okay. Little fun gravity high school experiment. You might remember your teachers doing this. And then now the flash drive. Right, that one was super quiet. Just to give you a sense of how much improvement we made. You know, we were using phone books, right, in like the year 2000, 2005, right? Like my parents still had them. And then 5, 10 years later, these are gone, and we're all on these. To do it another way, try visual. Imagine this holding 8,000 phone books stacked from the floor to the ceiling. That equivalent height is about 1,700 feet, or the height of the Sears Tower in Chicago. Or I guess Will's Tower now. The Sears Tower. Yeah, thank you. Good Chicago native over there. That is just an insane amount of improvement, right, that we've seen over a decade. Okay, so take that visual, right? This is 8,000 phone books stacked up to the height of the Sears Tower. Now I'm going to try to take this a step further and visualize 175 zettabytes, which is the amount of data that humanity has generated over time. So here's the Earth. And we're going to visually stack the equivalent in phone books up into space. Okay, we're going to start out here. To orient you here, so this is, I think I have a laser pointer on here. This is the Earth. Oops. Earth, that's Mars. We have Venus down there. We have the moon on the left. Now we're going to move up into the solar system. So we're going to pass the asteroid belt, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, almost all the way up to Pluto. We're not done. I had to put the slide sideways so we can visualize the whole thing. This is the solar system. Here's the Earth's orbit, that first dotted white line. And then we have Pluto's orbit there. It stretches 23.6 billion miles into space. And it's going to triple by 2030. And the point here, the big takeaway, is that our digital footprint has far outpaced our physical, right? Some of the furthest Earth satellites haven't made it past Pluto. But if you took the equivalent of the information that we have gathered collectively as a species, it goes way, way, way beyond that. Here's some more data on data. This is what has made AI so powerful, right? This was that third timeline that was running in the background, making these tools go from that little mouse that folks were experimenting with at MIT, at Bell Labs, to having ChatGPT and Claude and the next model nowadays. And my argument to you all is that if we're thinking about AI readiness and we're thinking about getting our students ready for not just AI, but all the emerging technology that's driven by data, whether it's the Internet of Things or it's smart sensors or it's just being able to navigate the internet with some confidence, we have to get our students much, much more equipped with the fundamentals of how data works. If you don't believe me, you don't believe this whole phone bit and phone book bit and flash drive demo, I'm not the only one saying this. So the World Economic Forum put out a future jobs report earlier this year. Top 10 fastest growing skills by 2030, AI and big data, and notice that they are paired together, right? Those two things are not separated, and that's intentional. The Burning Glass Institute also did a report on this, and they looked at just the US economy, and they went sector by sector. Data skills are not just showing up in finance or technology, but the top sector is manufacturing, agriculture, and energy management. Right? It's showing up in places where you wouldn't typically expect. But every sector is being revolutionized by this stuff. If you're a farmer today, and Sam, you just went to the world or the country's largest agriculture show, right? Tractors nowadays are like Internet of Things devices. They have smart sensors. If you look at the John Deere website, it looks like Apple did in 2012. Everyone's going to have to know how to process this stuff, and they're going to need the fundamentals. And then the last one, a new Gallup poll that just came out a couple months ago, showing that if you asked US high school graduates about what was emphasized in their curriculum, they wish they would have learned more about data and data skills. And in particular, they asked about mathematics. Because it turns, shout out to any math teachers in the room. It turns out that, well, in the math curriculum, there's a very, very small thread dedicated to probability and statistics. But this part of the curriculum is rarely emphasized, and for a couple reasons. First, it's often the unit at the back of the book, right? How often do teachers have to cut something for time as they're going through the school year? Second, it's somewhat in state standards, but it's not where it should be, especially for today's standards. And the third thing is that when most teachers were going through school, they didn't have the opportunity to learn about data because it wasn't in their own curriculum, right? And so you get a cycle over time of even a lot of math teachers, and there's a lot of good survey research showing this, that they are the least confident in statistics, probability, data skills, because they didn't get that training as they were going through their own curriculum. Okay. We have a problem, though. Just as the demand for data skills has been going up, NAEP scores show that performance, specifically in the sub-content area around stats, probability, and data analysis, has been declining. And to orient you to this, eighth grade scores are down 17 points since 2011. And there was a big drop during the pandemic, but notice this whole part pre-pandemic, for about a decade, it was declining. 10 points is equivalent to about a whole grade level's worth of learning. I used to work at IES, the Department of Education, so I worked in the office that conducts the NAEP test, so I know this stuff really well. And then if you, the other thing I would acknowledge, if you compare white and black students' performance. Black students trail their white peers by about 27 points. And so that's almost the equivalent of 3 grade levels. If you compare rich and poor kids, low-income students are trailing by 40 points. 4 grade levels worth of data skills, right? And so we have a lot of work to do. Now, thankfully, it's not all doom and gloom. There's help on the way. As Mark mentioned in the very kind intro, we have, over just the past couple of years, grown data science and data literacy educations across the country, working with state education agency staff directly, to now 35 states. A lot of these programs are pilots, right? They're working with a number of schools to get these programs off the ground. But the problem is that as of now, the stuff is spread really thin. A lot of these states, it's like 20, maybe 30 schools. And so the infrastructure is there, and the early seeds have been planted, but we have a lot more work to do to scale it. And 2 things I want to just flag really quickly for champion states that are standing out. Alabama, in particular, they've been working with a curriculum provider at the SEA level. Dr. Eric Mackey has a new op-ed out in the 74 Million just earlier this week that's talking about all the great work that their state has done to build out a data literacy program for their students. You all can Google it. That came out on Tuesday. He's currently, I think, the chair of CCSSO. And then Virginia and West Virginia, the twin Virginias, have had a particularly strong approach on standards. Again, it's early days for this stuff, right? We want to help grow it and spread it. Only about 7 states have enacted this for all students. Because right now it's pilots, right? We're talking 20, 40 schools. We have about 70,000 students currently enrolled across the country in data science education programs, and that sounds like a large number, and that's only 3% of high school graduates. And so the base is there, but my call to action for the policy community is, can we scale this stuff up and help ensure that every student is prepared for the digital age that is increasingly dominated by AI? Okay, so, well, what can we do? Do we have some actionable ideas to actually get this done? First idea, audit your state math standards. And this is a really simple one. It doesn't cost any money, or costs a little bit, but pull your committee together. Take a look at the content expectations in math. You can also do other subjects, right, science or social studies, and see is data being emphasized. Our team just released a new framework that's national consensus. It's about 14 national teacher associations and other education nonprofits that spell out grade-by-grade level targets for data learning as a student progresses from elementary to middle to high school. Second idea, and this I think goes really nicely with the high school redesign work, build better pathways to graduation in high school, right? Especially mathematics and CTE. But as a student enters the high school space, can they have more opportunities to pursue specialized courses in math content or science content that relates to the real skills that are being emphasized in the workforce? And can we dial that up as students walk through their curriculum? The third is invest in upskilling educators, right? With the training, the modern course materials, and the technology to enact these experiences and make them feel authentic to students, make it feel like the real world, right? We shouldn't be giving them TI-84 graphing calculators when no one in 20 years has used a TI-84 graphing calculator on the floor of Google or Microsoft or another tech company. And then the last one, which is modernize higher education requirements for more flexibility to allow students to actually get that content and have higher ed incentivize it versus be a barrier to modernizing the curriculum. And so those are my ideas. I hope that this has been inspiring and gave you at least a little bit of a landscape of where the world is going, how it's changing, and what we need to do to equip our students for the future. So thank you all so much for the time. Greatly appreciative of being brought in.